Hello, this is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. I wanted to go over the Chapter 6 Labs Part 2, Lab 3. And this is a lab where you accept bids for an online auction, and it can be in different variety of formats, right? And so here you've got the following bid format should be accepted. So it has 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 different ones here. So you have to be able to accept all those. So here's basically the app down here where you're going to go ahead and you should be able to put in any of those from that list and hit the button, and it should be able to go ahead and parse out what it doesn't need, and it should be able to say if it's accepted or not accepted. Okay. So I'm not going to do this exact one, but I'm going to do something similar. This is kind of like a voter age one. Let me bring that up here. So this is an age checker for voting, okay? And let's go ahead and just look at the app real quick so you can see it. So you enter the age. You're going to be able to enter different things. And here it's a age 21, and hit submit, and it's going to say you're eligible to vote. And then if you put in age 16, you must be at least 18 to vote. So if I put in something other than what I'm expecting to have there, I am 16, invalid format, right? Because I'm only searching for certain formats, okay? But that's a valid one. Let's see what else. 16, I can put years in here like that, or YRS. Okay, so I have different formats I can put in here. I'm missing the whole vote thing. Need to make my label a little bigger. So here, so what I'm doing here, I'm using some special string methods that are available that we haven't really gone over. It's actually part of Chapter 9. So if you want to look at some of these things in Chapter 9, it can help you out. But I'm going to just show you how you can do some parsing of them strings to make it easier. Now, this is just one solution. If you're already working on this lab, there's other solutions, other ways to do it, but I'm just going to show you one solution. So basically here I've got a parse age method, which I'm calling for my button.click, all right? So my button.click, I'm calling this parse age, passing in the data from the input field, okay? The first thing I'm doing here is a dot trim. And what dot trim will do, it's going to trim any leading and trailing spaces. So if you had something like this, and you had a bunch of spaces here in your input field, if you had any extra spaces, a lot of times that happens, obviously. Sometimes when people copy something from one document to another document, things like that, or accidentally hit the wrong thing. But what trim will do is basically take the string and it will get rid of the leading and trailing spaces from it. So that's a good thing to start out with, especially when you're trying to parse data from a string. So this trim will do that. And so now you got this age input, which is your trimmed string, okay? We're going to go in here and we're going to test for some different scenarios, right? We're going to test if the age input starts with age, okay? That's one of them, okay? So this else belongs to this if here, so this is all one. And the other one, we're going to check to see if our age input ends in years, okay? Or some other ones are actually like this as well, okay? So we're going to check if it ends with that or ends with that. We're going to go ahead and parse out some things, okay? We're going to replace some things, right? So like I said, the first thing we did is our trim. Some of the other methods we're going to be using is starts with, also ends with, okay? And then also replace. So these are all string methods that are included with the language that you can perform to do various functions. And in this case, we're using it to just to test some things, and then if them scenarios are true, then we're going to do something else, right? So in this first case, we're gonna take our age input, which is our trim string, and we're going to say, does this start with age? Okay. If it does start with age, okay, and actually here, what we're doing here, this starts with method can take an extra parameter. The first one is basically the string you're looking for. The second one is a special, it's called an enumeration. I don't want to confuse you too much on this, but it basically checks to make sure it's just going to ignore the case. So if this was uppercase coming in, it's going to ignore the case. So it's basically saying, let's just ignore the case of this, right? And so, you know, how it does that internally, I'm not sure. It'd probably change it to lowercase, but it's just going to ignore the case, right? And then it's going to say, so if it starts with age, okay, we're going to take our age input and we're going to replace any, we're going to replace age with an empty, with just empty string, right? So age is, it's going to take that input, it's going to replace that with nothing, and then so that age input, so if you put in age space 20, it's going to go ahead and remove the age from it, right? It's going to remove the age from it, so that you're going to be left with that. So let's just say it was like the, I don't want to put it there to confuse you. Let's say our string was like this. Let's say our string was like this coming in. I think this is probably the best way. So let's say it's coming in like this. What it's going to do, it's going to say, first it's got to start with age. If it starts with age, yes, it starts with age. Then it's going to come here to this next line. It's going to actually take this and it's going to replace this with empty. Not actually a like a space, but just boom. Now you'll actually have an extra space here because you had a space in between your age and 20. Okay, this original trim that you did here only does the whole string. So if you had like this and this, right, it would remove that and it would remove that. But once you get here, this is what your string would look like if it started with age. And then this replace is going to replace this with an empty string, but you're still going to have a space left over there. So actually, if you look at the end of this here, we do another trim. Okay, we're doing another trim. So that's going to actually take this and get rid of this as well. It will trim any spaces, doesn't matter how many there were. Now you'd end up with that, okay? So in that case, you would execute this. You would execute this. You would not execute this, and you'd go down to the next one. But here, let's make this just a little bit different. And actually, let me just put it up here to make things a little more understandable here. So let's just say our string looked like, so we already trimmed it at age 20 years. Okay. So we started out with age 20 years. If it had any spaces here, leading or trailing it, get rid of those. So that's what you would have. You would come here. Does it start with age? Yes, it does. Does age, and so then we would replace age like we just did with empty string. Then since after that happens, we do a trim. This, we already trimmed the spaces earlier, but we have a space left over from replacing the age word, and it would actually be like that now. Okay. So then you would go down to this next if, right? Because this next if is not part of an else, right? It's going to execute this first one. It did this. It's going to skip the else. Now it's coming down here. And it's saying, is age input, does it end in years? Does this string end in years? Yes, it does. So then it's going to say, hey, let's replace years with an empty string, just like that. Right? But now you still have that space, right? But at the end of this, we have a trim, right? So we're going to trim that off there. So that's what you would end up, that's what you would have at the end of that block. All of those, if else statements. And then you would go ahead and you do int try parse your age input. This is what you have left with age input equals, and you would try to parse this, okay? And then you're checking to see if the age is less than 18. If it's less than 18, you must be 18 years old to vote. If age is 18 or older, you return you are eligible to vote. And then, as you notice, we have at the very bottom of our method, we have a return invalid age format. So just in case, for some reason, one of these does not execute, you always have to have a return, right? This is kind of your default return on that method. This happens right at the end. But since whenever a return is executed, it leaves that code block and it's gone from there, right? So this won't get executed unless neither one of these executed, right? So let's go through this one more time if you'd like. Why not? So let's do a different string here. And we'll do, so this one has age colon. So let's do that. So obviously, like we said, our string's going to be trimmed at the beginning already. So we're going to do age like this, and we'll do 16. And then we'll do YRS for years. I think that was the other one. Okay. So then we're going to come in here, and it's going to go to this first one. Does age input start with age? Okay. Actually, I need to check this because I don't think that's going to work correctly. So let's go ahead and put this in debug mode, because this is what's going to happen. The way this is written, this needs to be changed. The way this is written, it's going to come in here, and it's going to start with AGE, and it's going to go ahead and execute this line. It's going to return AGE, but it's going to still leave that colon there. And since this is an else, this is going to fall through here, so it's going to be left with this after that first statement. So that's a problem. So what let's go ahead and take a look at this in the debugger, just so we can prove that that's the case here. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to highlight this line, or right click here. I'm going to do breakpoint, right? I'm going to put insert breakpoint, and then let's go ahead and start this app up, and it'll stop at this line. So here we want to put in just like that. So we want to put in age with the colon, and then 16, and then YRS, right? And then if we hit submit here, we're going to go to this line. And as you can see, the input value, I know it's really hard for you to see here, but it's AGE 16 years like we expected. It's already been trimmed here. Actually, I don't know why I didn't just hover over this one. So it's what we're going to go ahead and go to the next line here. So this was true. It does start with age. Now it's doing this replace. Okay. Let's just go over this one. I'll do that. So now it's finished executing this line. And if you end up me hovering over this, I can actually see that it's still, it removed the age, but it has that colon. It has colon space 16 years. Okay, so this is a problem. So we'd have to fix this. Let's go ahead and step over. So that would actually end up executing that one because it's going to return the ears. But then when we get to this next, now when we try to parse this thing, it's going to be a parse error. We're going to try parse, and this is going to be a parse error because it still has that colon in there. And we did the try parse, and it's going to turn invalid format because it could not parse that. Right? It just this failed, and it just dropped down to here. Okay. Try parse will not throw an error in here. If you do it this way, it's just going to not execute anything within that block there, and it's going to drop down to the bottom, right? So what we can do here to fix that is let's get rid of the breakpoint. So what we can do here is just do it this way instead. We can do that. And check this one first. This probably won't be a case for your lab here. I didn't see this and I expected this to work, but when I looked at it while we're walking through, I said, oh, that ain't going to work like that. So this case, this should do it now. This should do it. So that way it's going to come in here. It's going to check this case first. If this does, it's going to remove all of that. Else, if it's just age by itself, then it's going to do that. Okay. So let's just go ahead and put this in our checker. Run this again. And there you go. That worked. Because we covered this one first. We had to cover that one first. Yep. So, and then I guess we don't need to go over this other one. So then this would come down here, YRS to years. It's not going to match years. Else does it match this one? It does match it and would actually take and replace years with the empty string as well, right? Then you get down here and it would just be the number itself, which is 16. It would successfully parse this, okay? I don't know if this will help you with the bid thing. I know they're using numbers there, but you treat everything with, you still got to treat it as a string, right? So you treat it as a string until you can get that number, right? Hopefully this will help you a little bit with that. The important things is there's these special string methods you can use on your different strings. And here we got the age input. You have your starts with, right? We have our dot replace. And then, make sure when you do the start with or ends with, you use the string comparison dot ordinal ignore case. So that will ignore the case of it. Okay. And then and I guess that's about it. We had the starts with, the ends with, the replace, and make sure you use the string comparison ordinal ignore case. And that should be about it. And make sure you do you're going to do a try parse on it. That way if it doesn't execute it, it'll just fall out of it. It just won't, it'll ignore it and move down to the next line. So I hope this might help you a little bit with your lab. Please contact me if you have any more questions.